Well, minute of is not so bad. Let me get this adjusted, though. Of course. All right. Welcome. It's 28 October 2021. This is the live stream. And something funny happened this week. Okay. So I was in a live stream for somebody else, and there was this guy who kept just running his mouth like a little bitch. He kept saying that there are hundreds of thousands of shootings in the U.S. versus none in Britain, or was it Australia? And to be fair, he didn't say none. He said few, very, very few. You would think that that would be categorical proof that Australia's gun control laws worked. You'd be wrong. Okay, let's start with the elephant in the room. 33,000. That's the number for how many gun-related deaths there are in the United States. That's a lot. I mean, wow, that's more than the total population of some countries, right? Yeah, well, first of all, that 33,000 compared to a population of, say, 40,000, that would be huge. The U.S. has 350 million people. Oh. Okay, so like 1 in 1,000? But it gets better. I'm going to pick on Britain here for a moment because, well, honestly, they did this to themselves. Britain has a population of about 35 million people. Okay, so what? Britain has a gun death total of about 600 per year. Oh, well, that's quite a few, but nothing compared to 33,000. Funny part of that story. That 33,000 also includes all firearms deaths. This has been said so many times, it's kind of disturbing. It has to be repeated. But 2/3 of those deaths are self-inflicted, deliberately self-inflicted. Little secret about suicide. If a medical examiner cannot determine that this is a suicide and only a suicide, they will chalk it up as an accidental. It's a great example from the sulfa elixir case. The chemist who was responsible for the development of sulfur elixir, a medicinal compound that killed 100 people before it got literally ripped off of shelves. After the criminal trials were done, he had an accident while cleaning his gun. To the best of my knowledge, it's still listed legally as an accidental self-inflicted death. It's not listed as a suicide. That's the reality. There's an episode of NYPD Blue in which a soon-to-be former cop, well, he killed himself. He even made a video for his son, who was Sipowitz's partner. I can't remember the character's name at all, or the actor's name. Former child actor. You'll know who I'm talking about now. Previous big credit was Saved by the Bell. Somebody help me out here. Anyway, The father character, he kills himself. He makes a video. He even says, "And be with your mother." Oh, okay. That's a very specific detail. The first thing Sipowicz does, the kid, he's having a little bit of a breakdown, which is natural and understandable under the circumstances. And Sipowicz, the first thing he's doing, he's trying to cover it up. Where's your dad's cleaning kit? Where is it? What happened to it? You got to help me out here. You got to help me out here. First thing that Sipowicz did, try to cover up the suicide, make it look like an accident. That's not uncommon, people. The reality is, if we were to include potential or suspected suicides into that 22,000 list, it'd be a little bit closer to 30 by itself. Well, let's skip that. Let's focus now on the 11,000 that were not ruled deliberate self-inflicted, i.e. suicide. About half are just accidental. Oh, well, right there is 5,000. Let's just round it off to 5,000. Easy math, right? Half of that, now 3,000, are, 2,500 are now justifiable or other. Oh, so we're now running at about 2,500. Now I'm going to round that up to 3,000. Again, easy math. I want nice whole units. So now we're down to 3,000 either justifiable or excusable shootings. And that's a technical term. Just run with it for a moment. And criminal shootings combined. Let's go with the halves because that's easy. 1,500. Half were justifiable and excusable. Half were criminal in nature. 1,500, let's focus just now on the criminal, of 350 million. Morning, Squatch. You're not any later than I am today. Okay. Now, because I am not a mathematical genius, I'm going to go ahead and 1,500 divided by 350 million. I should have done this before. It's about 4%. Oh, 4% is single-digit territory. There were 600 gun-related deaths just in Great Britain, England, that funny little center half of an island off the coast of Europe, whatever you want to call it. I don't give a shit. Of a population of 35 million. 600 divided by 35 million. 1.5%. A little over 1.5%. That sounds great. We're 4 times more violent than Britons, right? No. Actually, considering the roundings involved, that would be 2% versus 4, but so twice as violent. No, there's a dirty little secret of British reporting statistics, and to give them credit, they didn't create it. Joseph Stalin actually did. It's not a murder if there's no conviction. In the US, we report all gun deaths. In Britain, they don't report them as gun deaths. They report them as murders. There were 600 convictions for murder in Great Britain. The reality is there's more than twice that. And this is the really mind-blowing part. 100% of the 99.9% of those 600, just the 600 by itself, are criminal in nature. Now, 2018 had what Donut Operator called a unicorn, a possibly once in a decade justifiable police officer shooting. This was the London Bridge incident. Why do I carry a gun? Because the narwhal's tusk won't fit in my pocket. Okay. Enough with the sarcasm. In that incident, there was a peace officer. He opened fire. Another cop had dragged the narwhal guy off of him, off of the suspected suicide bomber. It was great. It was absolutely incredible to watch a convicted felon trying to save lives. We'll move on past that for a moment. Out of 600, there was one non-criminal death. Oh my. Huh. In the US, roughly, well, let's use a little rounding, 1% of those 33,000 were actually crimes. In the UK, 99% were. Oh my. And at least 141 were justifiable. Now, here's the nasty little shit I pull sometimes. The dirty pull that I do sometimes. It wasn't half are accidental and half are justifiable and criminal. It's actually half were justifiable and half were criminal and accidental combined. So you mean it's 2 for 1? Yeah, it's 2 for 1. But okay. There's also almost as many shootings in Britain as there are, half as many shootings in Britain as there were in the United States for a population of 1/10. Oh, well. That's not good at all. Let's put this in a slightly different context. Let's say that country A has 100 people who get COVID and country B has 1,000 people who get COVID. Obviously, country B is much more dangerous, right? Maybe they're not using any kind of protective measures. Or maybe they're just kind of stupid. Who knows? Well, that's the way it would sound until you hear that country A is a population of 1,000 and country B is a population of 1.5 million. Oh. Well, that makes a big difference, doesn't it? All of a sudden, country B is clearly the safer country. Maybe they're better educated, or maybe they care more. Yes, they have 10 times as many people that caught COVID, but they have how many times more people? At, well over 1.5. Excuse me. Well over 150 times the population with only 10 times as many people getting sick. Oh. Now, I really wish Mr. Long, what the fuck was this? Richard? Yeah. I really wish Richard would come in here and show his face. He's not going to. The UK and gun control supporters in general are so entrenched in this idea that the British model worked that they don't want to know the truth. They're literally afraid of the truth. For those of you that are familiar with my interesting moniker that rhymes with forget, I got dubbed that by Shannon Watts herself. Thanks, babe. It's not because it's true. I'm straight. Everybody knows it. It's because it makes me look bad. Okay. Well, that's exactly what they do. Can't fight you on the facts of the case. All right. If they were to look at the facts, the evidence of the case, they'd say, hey, wait a second. This isn't making sense anymore. So they'll just call you ugly, nasty names. You know, like accusing NRA of being criminal conspiracy. Somebody help me out here. It's the exact term she used. Not just that they're shills for the gun industry. No. That they're involved in financial shenanigans, which unfortunately was true, but had nothing to do with the advocacy or lack of advocacy. You want to know about the advocacy or lack of coming out of NRA, don't go to it. Mom's Demand or Violence Policy Center. They have no idea. You go to people like FPC or GOA, they're the ones sitting there saying, wait a second, you know, what did you do? You signed off on the Hughes Amendment? You signed off on this, you signed off on that, and you didn't fight this battle. True story. NRA did sign off on the 91 assault weapons ban, is what it was very dishonestly called. That one had a twilight clause on it, which makes it understandable. Okay, all right. We're going to try it your way for a few years, see what happens, and then we'll come back. And when nothing changed at the end of the day, twilight clause engaged. Most people forget about this. NRA was actually fighting the 91 ban until it got that twilight clause on it. In 2001, it expired. All of a sudden, everything's legal again. They did fight for that. They haven't fought for much of anything since. You can take any part of any set of facts, and if you make sure you control what facts get out or what facts are understood, you can make anything look like anything. There's an old joke in law enforcement that you can convict a ham sandwich of murder but you better make sure that the judge only hears about the ham sandwich. Likewise, our dear Richard Long here, who's not here, didn't tell you the whole story. He only told you the one thing he wanted you to hear, that the U.S. has loads and loads of shootings every day. Not true. And that it's so violent. Well, also, really not that true. Now, I know some people are going to say, all of the shootings are out of Chicago and New York and Los Angeles and other big cities. They'll always pick on Chicago, and then they'll pick one or two others that they just happen to dislike. I don't care. I actually don't care that one or two cities makes up about half of the shootings. It's irrelevant. That's the reality. These are trends that move around, and you can look to any city on Earth with population in the 5-digit range and say, yeah, there's going to be more criminal activity there than there is some backwoods village where the cops are busy dealing with domestic violence calls, alcohol-related calls, very often both at the same time, and traffic, writing traffic tickets. That's part of the reason cops go there. All right? They go to Los Angeles to be a cop for a couple of years, and then they go on to some small podunk Mayberry sheriff's office to finish out their career. Not exactly friends with the guy, but I do know somebody that did exactly that back in Michigan. Not that it's relevant, but... And that whole department only exists basically to be a training facility for potential future cops. Simple time. The U.S. is only 1/10 as violent when it comes to firearms as Great Britain. All right. Why is this? Well, there's a couple of factors. One is literally Britain's gun ban in general. Simple fact of the matter is criminals have all the guns. And that's the reality. The criminals have the guns, not the people. If you are a criminal and you have a gun and you know that your victims do not, you're going to be more inclined to think you can do this thing, whether it's a push-in, home invasion, robbery, or a drive-by shooting, or whatever else. If you know nobody has a gun, all of a sudden you are very, very powerful. It's in line with the old saying, the one-eyed man is king in the land of the blind. Somebody who has a power, a superpower compared to everybody else, is automatically more powerful than everybody around them. Add to that the fact that, as P.A. Ludi proved, banning the guns didn't make them disappear. You just fashion your own. What was that really great line from Star Trek? We forbade them weapons, they simply fashioned their own. The Salt Lakers says, obey. I know that name. I've never seen you here before. I'm not even sure where I know you from. But that's okay. Welcome. And no. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. PA Ludi proved you can't ban the guns. It doesn't work that way. He made a choice about when he would go to prison. The rumor is that he's the one that sent Scotland Yard around in circles trying to arrest him when he either had a non-functional gun or whatever. He would set up so that he'd be stopped with a gun, and then they'd take the gun, and his defense would be, that's not really a gun, Your Honor. That's just a piece of steel. Go ahead, test it. It won't work. And he did this this happened 5 times, and then all of a sudden one day, he just happened to get busted with a real gun in the car because he made sure that was the day they stopped him. He's the one that had his girlfriend or whatever the fuck their relationship was call the cops and say, he's got the gun again. And supposedly, when they got the call, they were like, yeah, sure, whatever. We've been through this game before. But they stopped him anyway, and holy shit, he actually does have a gun this time. And now I'm gonna play a little less dirty pool than I usually do, but a little more than I should. I got that story from a former member of Scotland Yard. He was part of the team that tested the gun to make sure it was real this time, so that it wouldn't waste time prosecuting him over a non-crime. They put it in the testing bench or the testing rig. They pulled the trigger expecting nothing to happen, and then it actually went bang, and they said, oh, shit, this one's real. This guy is actually handled... No, I'm sorry. I was about to say he handled the gun, but he never actually said that. He said he was part of the testing team. They didn't expect this one to be any realer than all of the previous 5 or 6 that they had stopped him with. And oops, this one was. He didn't even have his hearing protection on because he didn't believe it was real himself. And then the report of the gun in that testing facility, he said he was deaf for a couple minutes afterwards and in total shock. Squatch, for what it's worth, I don't remember anything bad about Salt Lakers, so I'm pretty sure he's okay. All right, moving on. What good did that do? Nothing. All they did was prove that you can pass a law. Hell, I can pass a law to ban out to outlaw ham sandwiches. You think that's going to go anywhere? You'd have to ban the ham. Well, that's not going to go very far either. You got to outlaw the pigs. Well, that's not going to go anywhere very far either. You've got to destroy all of the pigs and the wild pigs and the feral hogs and the wild hogs, because at some point somebody's going to get around that. Okay, no problem. Let's just pretend they do that for a second. That's not going to actually do anything. And I'm going to particularly pick on you Aussies now for a minute. Excuse me. I knew that down in South America, Brazil in particular, there's a little cottage industry of homemade guns. The MAC-10 is the most popular model because, to be perfectly honest, it's the simplest. Oh, excuse me. It's the simplest to build. Okay. So I was researching. I was tracking this story down again. I know from one story that the Policia Nacional, I hope I pronounced that correctly, they busted a major clandestine gun factory with just a few thousand MAC 10s. They took them out, they tested them to make sure these were real guns and not a decoy operation, which is something that Brazilian drug lords are known for. They're also known for decoy drug operations. They tested them, they're real, and they were of such exceptionally high quality that for the equivalent of about $3 in the US in the 1990s, late 90s, they were able to convert these from automatic only to semi-auto only and issued them out to Policia Nacional personnel as off-duty and backup guns. They had like thousands of the things to hand out. That's it. If I understood the story correctly, and I'm kind of not sure entirely that I did, they did have to make new barrels. Or maybe they had to finish making barrels, something like that. But that's it. They're handing out thousands of MAC 10s that they had just confiscated. Oh, that's the story I was actually looking for, because there was some questions about exactly what really happened there. I'm looking for that story, and I found something very funny. Down in Australia, biker gangs, or bikies as they're called down there, are making Tech 9s by the thousands as well. And they're not just manufacturing them, all right? They're not fabricating, all right? Fabrication is where you make one or two for research or personal use or whatever. No, this is manufacturing with semi-automated equipment. Holy shit. But okay. This is mass production shit. They're using them, and in increasing numbers. This shit post that I'm going back to Richard here. This shit post that there hasn't been a mass shooting in Australia since 1996 is an absolute lie. All right. Let's skip past the internationally infamous shooting. Okay, god damn it. I forgot where it was, but at the end of the day, it was a cop who was shot and killed, and I think another one oh fuck. Another one who was shot and injured, and that's it. All right. After that, the Australian cops went in and they pumped him so full of holes that they can't even count them all. Stand by, folks. I just got a notification, an alert from Squatch that the chat is not working. So we're going to stop that and close it. All right. Hi, Alpine. Pop out chat. Okay, I'm going to try this again, guys. I am very, very sorry. Share screen. This is one of the reasons why I really want them to add that as an automatic function. Okay. Let me see if that's working better. Oh, yeah, that's working so much better. I am very sorry about that, folks. I should have noticed that something was up. So I'm going to scroll over it real quick. And I hope everything's up. Okay. So the idea that there's no mass shootings in Australia is an absolute fucking lie. Let me just put it the way it is. They're killing each other. In theory, it's criminals killing criminals. Here's the problem with that theory. It never works out the way you planned. And think about any war. Any war in world history. Has it ever been just soldiers killing each other? If you can think of one, please let me know. At the end of the day, civilians suffer right alongside the soldiers who are fighting. No, that's not an exception either. I would say the only exception is when 100% of the nation is militarized. Well, the only ones that I can think of on that list are Switzerland and Israel. But no, even in their cases, some people are not in the military now. They're completely civilian. They have no obligation to military service. They suffer right alongside as well. So I guess that's out too, isn't it? Alpine, you didn't need to retract that. You didn't say anything. Unless your spelling was off. Moving on. That's the way it always works. And in a gang war, civilians get caught up as well. Drive-bys in particular are extremely nasty because it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 guys in a car. They're going to see one guy, or they're going to know one guy is out by himself. They're aiming for him, and they don't care who gets caught in the crossfire. This one guy, maybe he's at a party, maybe he's at a bus stop. Who knows? In a drive-by shooting, people who weren't involved in the shooting in any way, shape, or form tend to outnumber the targets by 3 to 1, 4 to 1. 3 and change to 1. A great example is a seminal event in gun control, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. There were 2 actual gangsters in that garage and 3 mechanics. They weren't gangsters at all. They were just auto mechanics. That's it. One of them maybe was a little bit on one, headed towards one side of the equation. He wasn't there yet. And the other 2 would never be. Ironically enough, the 2 gangsters that were in there were not the ones they were aiming for, but rather the leader of the gang, Bugs Moran, who was not there yet. Now it's 1.5. Excuse me, half a 1-to-1. Yeah, okay. It would have been a 1-for-1 ratio if Bugs had shown up like he was supposed to. That's the best I've ever seen as a return. Okay, Alpine Gulch asks, how many Tommies though? I'm not sure what she means by Tommies. I'm going to guess Thompson submachine guns, and I don't know. I'm not even going to waste time lying to you about it. I don't know. I know down in Australia, I've never heard of a Thompson being recovered. Brazil, I have heard of a Thompson being recovered, but it was a World War II vintage that was issued to, well, it was issued to U.S. troops, and it worked its way down somehow. That's about it. That's the only ones I'm aware of, anyway. And no, one Thompson submachine gun turning up in Brazil or Australia, that's nothing. All right. There's a really kind of amusing story in some ways. When Australia banned their guns, that was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, excuse me. Everybody was supposed to turn theirs in. Okay. Well, there was a World War II Australian Army soldier who had his SMLE. He had taken it home. He'd placed it under his mattress or under his rack or something. He forgot it was there. It had been there for decades and decades and decades, and then he passed away. Excuse me. And then the law was changed. All right. We're talking about 20, 30 years later. His kids found Grandpa's old World War II gun and turned it in. Wow, this thing had sat there for something like 40 years, is the best they could tell, from the time it was last touched to the time it was found. If you think that's impressive, think about how many more guns are actually out there that the owner doesn't even know about. I got an interesting case study there. Mama Carey had bought a 25 caliber semi-auto way the hell back in the early 80s rather. Over the years, the gun just sort of disappeared, and nobody really thought about it. Mom put it somewhere, right? Forgot she had put it there, and just sort of ignored it because she wasn't going to carry it. Papa Carey found it last year, and holy shit, we thought this had been stolen. This back in the 90s, a little bit different a world back then. Dad didn't even know it was there. If Mama had still been around, she might have told us, "Oh my God, I forgot I put it there after coming home from work one day." No way to know. The U.S. exported Thompsons. Well, we exported Thompsons extensively, although not as extensively as some others, to basically anybody that would ask for them. We sent them to Russia, a country we would be at war with, Cold War with. What is it, 6 months after the end of World War II? We literally gave them 500,000. Oh. Okay, I'm going to catch up on chat for a second. Apparently, Alpine Gulch was asking how many Thompson submachine guns were at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. 2. There was also 2 sawed-off shotguns. Nobody has ever actually defined those guns because they've never been recovered. Squatch is pointing out that the Thompson fires the 45 caliber, which is one of the most common rounds ever produced. And yeah, that was very, very true for a very, very long time. And it might still be the highest in pure numbers, but as the inventory, very few people are making 45s now. Pretty much everybody's either making 9, 10, or 40. 45s are made by, in the US, I think 3 companies, and Winchester isn't one of them, thankfully. Excuse me. Everybody's mass producing the other 3 as fast as they can. In about 10 years, the inventory of 45s worldwide versus any one of the other 3 per any given country, there'll be more 9mm just in, let's say, Greece than there are 45s worldwide. It's just kind of the way it is. Squatch is saying, I heard great things about the 10mm. I've heard great things. I've heard horrible things. I leave that to people that do that sort of thing. All right. You've never seen me do a shooting video. You would have seen me do a shooting video once, but totally separate subject, because I know I'm not an expert. All right. I leave that to people that literally do nothing but play with guns all day, work on guns all day, shoot guns all day, whatever it is they do all day. I leave that to you guys. With the grace of God, go and do the thing you do. I would, I can name a few. In range, forgotten weapons, bloke on the range, burst review, fit and fire, and ghost tack. Those are currently my favorites. Oh, excuse me. I think I made the tea too strong today. This one's hitting me. Short version. The UK's gun ban actually didn't do anything. Australia's gun ban didn't actually do anything. All they did was make things look good. All right. I could grow out my hair and get a nice long ponytail and be looking like smooth face version of Gun Jesus. That don't make me Gun Jesus, does it? Just saying. Ian is 100 times the shooter I think I'll ever be. All right? That's the truth. Looking good isn't anything. Matter of fact, they got a term for people like that. Collies. Really pretty, but really stupid. I could easily go shooting, right? And I will get every bullet inside the silhouette. I'm capable of that. With my glasses, I can actually get them inside the 10 ring, because that's kind of the limit of my real shooting ability. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a professional shooter, right? What am I doing there? What would I be doing comparing myself to somebody who actually does know? That's the truth. There's another colleague that I could think of who has been elected to office. No, it's not the president or the vice president. Much lower on the food chain than the two of them. In fact, this individual that I'm thinking of is lower on the food chain than Kamala was when she was in the Senate. Much lower than Kamala was when she was in in the Senate. I'm just saying. Okay. Alpine Gulch said, side note, my cousin, the Marine, I did not know that, trained at Quantico, and passed away this morning. My condolences. He leaves 5 children and wife. It was, see, I'm only half here. I know what that means. And you're only half, yeah, you actually, Gulch, with the grace of God, go and deal with your family. Check out the rerun tomorrow or the next day. Sometime when you have a lot more time. Yeah, you should probably be not here, honey. Excuse me. You should probably be not here right now. Your family needs you right now. Yeah, Squatch, I know. As a matter of fact, I got into trouble on Facebook for reminding the world of that detail. That was 2018, I think. 18 or 19, I'm not sure. Either way. And I really, really love the Wheel of Fortune version of that, too. Richard, this is really meant for you, buddy. You lie, your feet stink, and Jesus hates your ass. All right? I want to touch on another little detail of, in particular, Australia's gun ban statistics. First of all, before Port Arthur, there had never been a mass shooting in Australia. Or had there? But anyway, after Port Arthur, they passed the law. So the idea of there being a mass shooting in Australia sounds unlikely. Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to that later. Sorry, guys, I thought my phone rang. Not coincidentally, perhaps, Australia's suicide rate dropped something like 5%. Excuse me, 15% in the first year. Wow, that's really impressive. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm not being sardonic. I'm being very dead serious here. Let me rephrase that. I'm being overwhelmingly serious. 15% drop in suicide in 1 year. That's mind-blowing numbers. Isn't it? Well, it would be unless you looked at the next 5 years. Over the course of the next 5 years, so somewhere around 2000, by 2003, those numbers had gone back up. The ban didn't actually stop suicides. It just slowed it down for a while. And I dispute even that 15% with that number in mind, with that 5-year number in mind. What it did was create one more barrier for an incidental decision to do something. With suicides, if it's not hanging 9 times out of 10, and there's no suicide note or anything else to suggest otherwise, medical examiners will chalk it up as an accident. The only way that they will chalk it up as a suicide is either A, it's a hanging. Okay, well, there's no way for you to accidentally hang yourself, unless it's a specific type of hanging. Or B, there's a suicide note right there. And they can't pretend they didn't see it, because the families will freak out if you say the S word. There are some medical examiners that even when you get to that point, they will say manner of death, self-inflicted, cause indeterminate. That way, all of the hate and malcontent goes to the homicide investigators, who actually have to sign off on that. They don't want to touch it. They don't want the family pounding at the door saying, why did you say that my son killed himself? He would never have done that. And I know that woman. All right? That was a neighbor of mine growing up. Get to that in a couple moments. They don't want to deal with the headache. Let the homicide investigators deal with it. And I don't blame them. When one method is removed, another method will take its place. Very unusual case that I heard about because I was a coastie and not because I was involved in it, is a gentleman who, it was listed as accidental, even though everybody's like, no, I was there, man. There's no way this was an accident. That guy was a fireman, FNMK at the time. Now when I met him, he's a senior chief. They found a 20-foot outboard motor boat, something like 40 miles off the coast of South Carolina. Now, a boat that happens to come undone and drifts that far out could happen. The fact that it was still floating at this point makes that kind of a little más o menos. There had been a overdue boater report from the day before. This senior chief was FNMK on a cutter. I don't know which one or even what type, to be honest with you. When they happened to come across a boat adrift in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, they pulled up alongside. They got the registration numbers or something. I don't know how they do it in South Carolina. And they found out, they realized, this is the overdue boat from yesterday, day before, whatever the hell it was. The only way that boat could have gotten that far off the coast in that amount of time was if he had deliberately hit the accelerator and gone out hard to get out to that point. Even factoring in about a day's worth of drift, it would have only been maybe 10, 15 miles off the coast. Now it's 100 plus miles, whatever the hell it was. Oh, man. And I know I'm remembering a story from 1999, maybe 2000, really, really roughly. But the senior chief was overwhelmingly specific. There's no way this boat drifted that far, that fast. The owner of the boat, or operator of the boat, had deliberately motored that far out. And now it looks like an accident. Alpine, if you even get asked to leave this dive overnight, you really need to think about yourself and your life. if you get kicked out of this dive, you really need to fix your life. So you do not need to fix your life. There is a couple people who have been kicked out of my bar. And just the same, our condolences on your cousin. But yeah, I mean, if you feel you need to stay, stay. Where was I? Oh, yes. About half of all suicides are made to look like accidents from the get-go. And this incident with Boat was like prime, beautiful, perfect example. For anybody who may have forgotten, at one time I thought I wanted to be a cop. Well, I did at the time. 2003 came along, and that was the end of that. But before I moved on with my future and intentions, I met a lot of cops. It's like half of the port security unit. They were cops in civilian life. I've heard ways of people accidentally dying that are just mind-blowing. Now, there's one in particular I will not touch, at least not right now, because it does involve a very high-profile individual. Accidental death. But I'll talk about a couple of the others. Now, obviously, I don't know names, and I'm not going to use names. One in particular, the guy accidentally electrocuted himself when he was working on a piece of electronic equipment in a freshly swabbed or hosed out garage. What? You just finished hosing your garage out, and now you're working on a radio or whatever the hell it was? Like, who's going to buy this story? But that's what it got written up as. Accidental. Oh, what was the other? Oh, a incredible number of accidental overdoses. Police officer Adam got called to the discovery of a dead body. It was a junkie he'd known from previous arrests. The needle's still in the guy's arm. That's how quick it was. Okay. They figure out that this guy who'd been slamming a 100th or a 10th of an ounce, whatever it was, of probably heroin every day for years, all of a sudden slammed an entire ounce. Wow. There's no way this guy did that much drugs that fast, that hard by accident. He knows how much he can handle, and he knew that wasn't it. So they go to his dealer and they find out that, yeah, the guy paid the whole amount. He usually will ask for an amount and then pay it off. This time he paid it all right up front because he's asking for a full ounce. Gee, does that sound accidental or what? Accidental traffic accidents, like cars driving off of bridges. That's an absolute accident. It happens all the time, doesn't it? Right? Right? No. This idea that that the suicide rate went down in Australia, it's probably bullshit. And on top of that, it went right back up again. I'm sorry, Australia. No, you don't even have that one. Even if it did work like you think it did, at the end of the day, it failed. And not for nothing, drug overdose is the easiest suicide because you just sort of, you get happy for a few seconds and then it's over. Okay, just halfway mark here. Good. You don't have the no mass shootings since 1996, I think it was, claim, because the mass shootings that you say you don't have are criminal gangs that are intending to kill each other off, but are killing innocent people in the crossfire. And all of a sudden, it's not a mass shooting because it was a drive-by of a rival gang member. Yeah, well, all those other people who got caught in the crossfire were just what? Tell me. I'd love to hear it. The only countries where gun control has even begun to work, and I say this with the caveat, sort of, are places like the Koreas, Japan, China, I'm sure there's a couple others that I'm not thinking of, where firearms were banned way the hell back in the 1400s, 1600s, 1800s at the most. And even there, it's not working really so much as it's much more easily hidden. Back in 2019, I believe it was, huge story worldwide of one Yakuza kingpin who'd been killed in a very public shooting and two other people who'd been wounded in the shooting. This was shocking because it was Japan, where you don't do that sort of thing, where that sort of thing never happens. Well, no, it happens all the damn time, but it's always behind closed doors so that the police will not get involved to begin with. Drug dealer A dies or disappears. Well, yeah, maybe he ran off to America to become a capo there, or whatever they call it in the Yakuza. That's the reality. People get shot and killed in Japan all the time, but they do it behind closed doors to make sure the police will not possibly get involved. Now, I'm really disappointed that Mr. Long did not join us today because I'd love to fight him. There's a couple other people I would love to fight as well. Add to that the fact that, for example, Britain, it's not a murder if there's no conviction. Well, if there's no investigation, I guess it's never going to be a murder, but it gets worse. Even if there is an investigation, they can't find a suspect. It can't be a murder because they never prosecuted anyone. If they don't get a successful prosecution, it's not a murder. It may be manslaughter. They get a plea deal. It's not a murder. It's a manslaughter. This is a way of fiddling with the books to make it look like things aren't as bad as they really are. to the best of my knowledge. Joseph Stalin actually started that trend when he wanted to make the Communist Brotherhood of Russia look so much better than the decadent bourgeoisie Western countries by showing that we have such a lower crime rate when they actually had a wildly, ridiculously higher crime rate. But if it's not actually a murder, can it be called a murder? Oh, I guess it can't. So if it's not a convicted murder, it gets reported as a manslaughter. Fact of the matter is, at that time, Russia had about 10 times as many murders because Stalin was not really dealing with his organized crime. Of course, he wasn't dealing with his organized crime. He was now basically the head of organized crime in Russia. Most people don't realize this. That's how he got his start. Shaking down businesses for the Russian mob and using that money that he was making off of that to finance the revolution. Of course he's going to try to cook those books. He doesn't want the world knowing that he's actually sitting at the top of a criminal empire that's bigger than the empire that he was accusing the United States of being. That's the end of the coffee and the tea. As Russia began using this same tactic, the entire world can look at just Moscow and know, wait a second, these numbers aren't adding up. They figure it out real quick, or maybe Stalin actually said, well, no, we don't count those because they're not actually murders. Maybe he came out and was honest about that detail. Either way, everybody else started to see that they're doing this tactic. We're going to do it too. U.S. went a different direction. We said, no. Our society depends on open and honest governance and transparency. We're going to report gun deaths as gun deaths and not cover it up by some sort of fancy wording. It's that fancy wording thing. When I went to write Daetslov, that I thought about as I'm writing the assault weapons section, you could use fancy wording to get around intermediate cartridge versus pistol cartridge versus rifle cartridge. Call it a hunting cartridge. And now it's not a rifle cartridge or it's not an intermediate cartridge. So it's not an intermediate cartridge. It's a hunting cartridge. Okay, so that means all of a sudden your 5.56 rifle or 7.6239 rifle is not a assault weapon or assault rifle. It's a hunting rifle. You think I'm joking? They accidentally did exactly that in Fallout. The hunting rifle, the one they used, was patterned on a Mini 14, fires 223 cartridge, but it's clearly an M14 pattern. But because it uses 223s, that's a hunting round, so it's a hunting rifle. in Interplay's defense, it was really pretty clearly obvious they don't actually understand guns. There's no malice involved. They just have no clue what they're talking about. Or at least they didn't at the time. Figures don't lie, but liars figure. Mr. Long, I'm talking to you. There's a few of you others out there that need to get that number or get that lesson as well. All right. I am going to switch the screen share because we're at 1 hour and 7 minutes. And I don't want to be rushing this at the end. Windows. Nope. No. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. All right, let me make sure it's coming through clearly, correctly. There, that's more of what I wanted. Okay. Title 4, background checks. Section 3, firearms. All persons seeking to purchase a firearm or obtain a concealed carry or restricted firearms permit shall complete a form not to exceed one sheet of paper generated by the National Crime Information Center, identifying the individual, attesting they are not excluded persons, and including fingerprints for comparison against established fingerprints of known criminals. No other information can be required nor requested, and any attempt to solicit such information shall be tried and convicted as a refusal to process and fined and imprisoned per Section 4. So that's coming up next. Said background are not permitted to take longer than 30 working days. Persons with an established NCIC file shall take no longer than 7 working days. Any background check not completed in said time frame shall be conditionally approved. Any background check not completed within 30 days of that shall be unconditionally approved. Time restrictions for unconditional approval may be suspended during a state of emergency upon declaration by a governor or president for the duration of the crisis, during which time conditional approvals shall be reduced to 2 calendar days. Okay, let's start this from the top. Anybody attempting to purchase a firearm or a concealed carry or restricted firearms permit the first time they do this have to go through this background. The first time they try to obtain a concealed carry or restricted weapon, the first time have to go through a background check. The first time you try to purchase a weapon, yes, you're going to go through this, but that will establish your file. Either way, it really does establish your file. Forever and ever, there will be a file now that says mandatory carry, Social Security number 12345678990, and whatever other information it has to say, and we'll have attached to it a fingerprint. I walk into any gun store, I can buy a gun, shouldn't be a problem. I should be able to walk out 20 minutes later after I've gone through this process the first time. If I attempt to get a concealed carry permit, I now have an established file. If I try to get it, what we now call a Class 3 license, I will have an established file. It should not take more than 7 working days. If I don't have an established file, it could take up to 30. They're allowed to take up to 30 days. If they cannot complete it in the 7 days, I can go back and get it. I can go back and get my gun that I've already paid for and everything else is done. And in the next 23 days, if they finally get around to it and discover there's a problem, they can come back and speak to me about the matter. If they cannot get it, if on the 31st day they finally did it and they realize there's a problem, too bad, so sad. It's your own fault. You have to deal with it, and you have to wait until I do something stupid because it's fruits of a forbidden tree. You could flag my file and say, oh, we know this guy bought a Glock 22 back in 2016, and he's not supposed to have any weapons, so if he ever buys another gun, we'll know that he attempted to buy a gun, but all we can do is refuse it. If we have another reason to think he may have been involved in a crime, we could look at the file, maybe. I will leave that to the Supreme Court. This 7 and 30 is to actually put pressure on ATF to act. I will not have a case like the New York matter like New York is now infamous for, and New Jersey is infamous for, of just not processing them for up to 5 years, thinking, we can get away with it. We don't have to process it. We don't have to actually obey the laws that we're making you obey. We're just not going to process it, and you can eat a dick. This puts pressure on them. They don't get it done in 30 days. Too bad, so sad. It's your own fault. You should have done your job. I did, however, give a little bit of leeway to the unconditional suspension coming and going during a declared emergency. The conditional approval goes down to 2 days. They have 2 days to make a decision that says, no, you absolutely are not supposed to have any kind of weapon, and you have to turn it back in. Correction. They have basically an unlimited amount of time as long as the crisis is going on to do that. But they only have 2 days to say, okay, well, we couldn't find anything on you right now, so you can have it for now, and you better not have anything we find later. And that only lasts for the duration of the crisis. It's not explicitly stated here that the day the crisis ends is the last day they have to figure it out. I intend to allow the Supreme Court to figure that out when they get to that point. Put that back in. There we go. Okay. Gulch asked, where do you find these trolls and why don't they show up? Well, this particular troll I found in Daisy Cousins' live stream Sunday. I believe it was Sunday. Why don't they show up? Because they know they can't. They could show up, all right, but this is a junior welterweight trying to go up against a ultra heavyweight. They know. It won't last 5 seconds. I'm not going to name names here, but I was invited to a live stream 2018, I think it was, where these were people I thought were friends of mine. One of them is, I think, but one of them, the leader of this merry little band, only invited me in so that he could say, well, there's loads and loads of shootings in America, and he wouldn't actually let me answer the question. He kept interrupting me because he knew I knew the answer already. So he would just keep up with this loads and loads of shooting crap, and then gave me some story, which is, excuse me, it's a true story, but it's also irrelevant. And he actually would kind of concede as much. I guess it's my own fault, but, well, yeah, actually, that is your own fault. Has what to do with what I'm talking about here. They don't show up because they know they can't. One thing cockroaches hate is the light. You see a cockroach out in the middle of your galley at noon on Tuesday, you need to take an overnight bag, go to the hotel, and call the exterminator and have the entire house bombed, because there must be one as big as your fist in there somewhere. Squatch says, lol, she blocked me once for asking about statistics. Lol, the truth is powerful. I don't give her any attention anymore. I was not aware that that's what happened. This caught me completely off guard. I think we should exchange a couple of emails later. What are we at for time? Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at one of her worst trolls. Oh. I have a habit. My first super chat with anybody will always be my canned answer. 9017 is coming. Iran created the coronavirus. Have a get home bag ready. It's actually, I can call it up right now. I'll read it verbatim. But yeah, I have a habit of my first super chat will always be this one, and then move on with the rest of the day, because why not? You know, what's the point of saying it more than once? Nobody's listening, or whatever. All right, it is exactly keep fighting, keep a get home bag ready, and remember that 9017 is coming. And something about Iran creating the creating the coronavirus. Hold on to that thought, Squatch. So yeah, I'm her worst troll. I do it every single time. All right. Yoko doesn't even read them anymore. She knows better. She doesn't waste time reading it out loud. She just says, "Thank you, Carrie." Viva, I've only told him twice not to bother reading that out loud. Everybody knows I'm going to say it. And sometimes he remembers and sometimes he forgets. Everybody knows this is exactly what I'm going to say. That's how bad it is. All right. Squatch says that the block may have been somebody else. And yeah, Squatch, email me or I will remember to email you. I know exactly who it was. I asked something about the distinction between a mass shooting and gang-related, and why gang shootings aren't counted as mass shootings. Suicides are counted as school shootings. Okay. I had it down to one person, but now it's down to one of two. I'm not going to name names right now, but it was one of two people exactly. Here's a hint. If you remember the name, probably not them. And yeah, I know almost exactly which mod it was. I'm not going to get into the second half of the question, by the way. First half of the question is, one of the defining characteristics of a mass shooting is no identifiable motive. A mass shooting at a workplace should at least have an identifiable motive. Some sort of hate at work. Especially if the first person to die is a particular person you have some sort of hate for. Or a school shooting, he's not there with no identifiable cause. He's there because he hates his classmates or his school or something. Versus a case like Port Arthur, where, to the best of my knowledge, no motive has ever been offered. Forget about established. Never even been offered. No explanation at all. Or oh, God damn it. There's Clackamas County. The Westfield shopping town in Clackamas County, Oregon. Literally nothing resembling a motive has ever been offered. They have no idea why this guy picked this building to do this, unless he was just going for a high score, and that's it. Suicide by cop, force the cops to come. That you can't establish that as a motive, but it sure would have worked. He just didn't expect to run into what he probably thought was an undercover or off-duty cop, basically as soon as he got through the door. Gang-related, you can identify a specific motive. They're trying to kill a rival. As for the second half of the question, why are suicides not counted as school-related? Excuse me, are. I cannot answer that, really. I think I should talk to an FBI agent to answer that one before I even try. Squatch, try reaching out to Callum. I'm just saying. Okay, we're at minute 3:05. Guys, please come up with one question for me every week. All right? I need the questions. I really do. That's the real reason I do this. Right? There are questions about Daetslov. I don't even remember what they were, and I answered them a long time ago. It's coming up on at least a year ago. But that's the reason I started this, so people could ask these questions. I started adding things because nobody was asking me anything. All right. Get home bag, because I do make such a big issue about this. Hold on to that thought. All right, get home bag. Oop, let me get that name covered up. A pair of light work gloves. You can roll them up. You can put a elastic band on them. You can, as I do, actually hang it from a loop, an elastic band loop, from the, in my case, the left side, so it's more out of the way than not. Oh, excuse me. They're not for general purpose. They are in case you come upon a situation where you've got to work, you need to protect your hands. Particular case in point that I'm thinking of. 2 years ago, I happened to be at Papa Carey's house when Snowmageddon hit. Me and my brothers were all there at the same time. My younger brother, that just happened to be the only time he could come out. My older brother came up to see Dad. That he happened to come up that weekend, and I was coming back every weekend at the time. Dad finally got pissed and told me just once a month. Anyway, Snowmageddon hits. The road is actually closed by a tree having fallen over. We had to get out and drag this cut this tree up and drag it off the road. Somebody else brought the saw, but when we were done, my hands were raw because I didn't have gloves of any sort. They were cold. I'm pulling on this tree bark and these small branches and stuff. Oh my God, my hands hurt so badly. That's the day I learned, gee, I wish I had a pair of gloves. I finally got them, that pair about 6 months ago. I finally got around to it 6 months ago. Now it's part of my get home bag. And there's another pair that's part of my everyday carry, sort of. Okay, Squatch, I'm interested in your challenge. Let me hear it. Alpine Gulch, do you have a cowboy cover? And actually, I do. It's a nice, wide-brimmed thing that will protect me from the rain and the snow and the sun in summer. So yes, of course I do. You want me to bring it one day? I might. And they don't fit on her, covers do not fit on her hair. Alpine, if you can, I know you have some real privacy issues. I'm not totally sure what's going on with that, and I don't ask because if I don't know, I can't tell anybody. So don't tell me. But if you can take a photo of yourself, and blur out your face so I can just get an idea what your hair situation is, email that to me. Let's see if I can help you out. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay, challenge 1. That's an interesting thing. One that's interesting thing a week on Sundays. Upload as a short. Actually, you're preaching to the choir. You just didn't know it yet. I've been thinking about that, and I should probably start doing exactly. Basically, somebody's telling me to do what you've been telling yourself to do for the last 6 months. That's kind of a hint, isn't it? Okay. I will start trying to do that. I also have to get Beyond Mandatory Carry channel started, which I guess I'll do starting today. All right, guys. I'm going to have to cut today short for reasons that I think y'all can figure out by now. Build a get-home bag. Go to Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot. Get one of those red bags, one of the red one-day bags. If that's what you have to do, start with that. Have it ready. Carry. Right? If you don't have a reason, you cannot. Carry a gun. Be ready, because 9017 really is coming. We've had many 9017s off and on for the last couple of years. Whatever you believe about the coronavirus, you believe. And wait. Me and Harry Nuts are doing Sunday uploads. Yeah, I know. Well, I did not know that, but yeah, you're right. I should be. All right. 9017 is coming. Have your get home bag ready. And until Wednesday, keep calm and mandatory carry on.